Hi everybody, welcome back to the Ultimate Goosebumps Man channel. Finally, after all of these months, I am back making videos again. I apologize for the long break. I was just kind of in a slump and not really very motivated to make videos. But I'm finally back, and I just want to give a huge shout out and thank you to people in the Goosebumps community, specifically Michael Goosebumps fan. That guy is just awesome, and after talking with him, he gave me a lot of pep talks and support to help me revigor my confidence in this channel, and I really appreciate it. And of course, also Goosebumps Completionist was really helpful in this as well, and just anybody else in the Goosebumps community who helped motivate me to bring this channel back. Thank you all. I appreciate you guys so much. It's just awesome to have you guys as a support group. So I figured for my first actual video back recording, I am going to do something a little different, because I don't have my Goosebumps books with me right now, so I can't really do the physical reviews. So instead, I'm going to do, basically up until Thanksgiving break, once I've got my books back, I am just going to do some random side videos just for fun. And today I decided I am going to rank the looks of Slappy. Obviously, Slappy is the mascot of Goosebumps. We all love him, and I thought might as well rank the looks, because he had so many different looks throughout the years, from the original Tim Jacobus illustration, to the 90s show, to now the new Disney Plus show, Slappy. So I just kind of wanted to go through, share my thoughts on which version of Slappy is the worst, and to which version is the best, and just kind of share my thoughts on each version. So, starting off with number 6, the worst Slappy design, in my opinion, is the Brandon Dorman version, from the 2008 reprints, I believe. And like the versions you see in Horrorland, and all those versions up until Slappy World, where they started going with the movie designs. But the original Brandon Dorman design for Slappy, I really don't like him. It's fine, no shade to Brandon Dorman. I think he's a good artist. I'm just not a big fan of his Goosebumps covers. But Slappy in Brandon Dorman's version just looks a bit too bizarre. I don't really like the segmented hair almost that he has in those original depictions. It just looks kind of weird in my opinion. I think the suit looks fine the way it is. Like, there's nothing really too special about it. It's just a generic suit. You can't really do much with it. And I also just don't really like the face. I think it's not scary in the slightest bit. It's just, I don't know. There's something about it that looks weird. I'm just not a big fan of that design. And that's all I gotta say about it. That's why it's my worst. So moving on to number 5, I am going to be going with Slappy from the Goosebumps Horror Town mobile game. Now, Horror Town as a mobile game, I'm not a big fan of it personally. I think there's a lot of cool Easter eggs and references. Mainly the art style is what kills it for me. I really don't like the art style or a lot of the monster designs in that game. And Slappy just looks kind of weird to me. I don't know what it is. Definitely better than Brandon Dorman's version, and it looks a lot more accurate to the Tim Jacobus illustration. But I think he just looks a little too overly cartoony in Horror Town. It's kind of the case with all the monsters in that game. I'm just not a big fan of the overly cartoony look for it. It just, again, doesn't look very scary. Moving on to my number 4 pick, and I know this is probably going to be controversial to a few people, but for number 4, I am going to be putting the movie Slappy from Goosebumps 2015 and Goosebumps Haunted Halloween. Now, I know a lot of people love the movie design for Slappy, and it's decent. I think it's a pretty decent design overall. Definitely is veering more towards book accuracy in terms of the live-action adaptations. Except for the brown eyes. The brown eyes don't make a lot of sense. I know they were trying to kind of mimic Jack Black's look, because Slappy is kind of the alter ego of Stein in those movies. So I get why they gave him brown eyes, but, you know, again, as a fan of the books and wanting more book-accurate adaptation, Slappy has blue eyes in the book. And so I just don't really like the brown eyes. And also I just feel, as again with the previous 2 versions, I think they just really underplayed his creepiness, and he's much more kidified and made more kid-friendly. Obviously, the Goosebumps movies are very kid-friendly and more comedic, not a lot of scares, so it makes sense and fits within the context of the movie and how the monsters look. I personally just not a big fan of it because I want my Slappy to be scary and intimidating. So moving on to my number 3, the really controversial pick. I know a lot of people are going to be mad at me for this, but my number 3 has to be Slappy from the original 90s show. Yeah, I know a lot of people are going to hate me for saying this, but I love the 90s show Slappy. Don't get me wrong. That show is easily the best thing Goosebumps were ever going to get. Unless for some odd reason we end up getting an anthology series later down the road, which I highly doubt. But, you know, it could happen. We'll have to wait and see, but yeah, the 90s show Slappy, personality-wise, he's great. Perfect adaptation of the books in terms of his personality and his voice, and just everything about him in that sense is great. But this is obviously a ranking video based on Slappy's appearance. And the TV show Slappy, he's creepy, I like it, but it doesn't look anything like the books. I know there's a lot of theories going around which are not true, but there's been some theories going around that originally this Slappy design was what they were going to use for Mr. Wood if they were going to adapt the Night of the Living Dummy 1 book into an episode. Obviously, it's been confirmed by the showrunners now that that episode was never filmed, it was never intended to be filmed, and that the version of Slappy we got in the show was simply because of creative liberties that the directors and the show designers and everything like that, they got to have those creative liberties within the show when designing the monsters. That's why some of them don't look very accurate, especially like the creeps from Calling All Creeps look completely different from their book counterparts, and Slappy is another big example. Those are probably the two most prominent. But, you know, Slappy has, you know, curly red hair, the green eyes. You all know what TV show Slappy looks like. He looks great. He looks creepy. Just not accurate to what the books are. And again, as an adaptation and as a fan of the book version of Slappy, that's what I really look for. And it just doesn't cut it with the very drastic differences from the book. Moving on to my number 2, and that would be Slappy from the Disney Plus show. I am one of the few people who have actually really enjoyed the Disney Plus show. I know there's a lot of people who do like it, but a lot of people in the Goosebumps community have been kind of mixed to negative on it. I personally have enjoyed it, especially the Night of the Living Dummy episode that premiered on Friday. I thought that was really solid, and I really liked the way they adapted Slappy in this. I feel like aside from the original 90s show, this is the most accurate Slappy to the books in terms of his personality and his mannerisms and stuff, even though he doesn't really walk in the episode, which is weird. And, you know, also he has a British accent in the show. I personally like the British accent. I think it works. I don't know. I know a lot of people are kind of mixed on that, but I really like the British accent. And, you know, I think some of the stuff he does in that episode was really good and really reminiscent of book Slappy. But this version of Slappy, in terms of the appearance, is easily, hands down, the most book-accurate version of Slappy that we've gotten. Aside from the realistic hair, which I know is, again, another kind of mixed element among the community. I personally like the realistic hair. Aside from that, he looks spot on to his book counterpart, even down to actually giving him the blue eyes, which is something that every other live-action adaptation of Slappy has not done. So I'm really glad that they actually gave him the blue eyes. They gave him the chipped appearance that he has in the book, specifically the chip in his lower lip, which is very prevalent description in the book. The chipped skin and paint isn't really like that, but I like that touch. It looks more like a vintage ventriloquist dummy. And foremost, this is easily the creepiest looking Slappy in my opinion. He's just, of all the Slappies, he's the one I would want to come to life the least, because I'm creeped out by him, but in the best way possible. But of course, there's only one correct answer as to what is the best Slappy in a lot of Goosebumps fans' minds, in my mind, and that of course is Slappy from the original book covers by Tim Jacobus. That is hands down the most iconic and amazing version of Slappy we will ever get. It's the one we all remember from our childhoods, looking at those book covers and scaring the death out of us. And, you know, Jacobus his art is always amazing for every Goosebumps book, pretty much. And his design for Slappy is just iconic. You know, the arched eyebrows, the really small beady eyes, the curled up grin, you know, just the way his pupils kind of just pierce the camera and the viewer at every cover. is just really creepy, especially in the original book cover from the first Night of the Living Dummy, where he's kind of tilted to the side, almost as if, you know, he's kind of leaning down in the chair, kind of what's also brought up in Dummies 2's cover. But yeah, it's always going to be the best. It's the one that started it all. It's the first visual adaptation of Slappy that we've ever gotten. And again, it will always be the best one in my eyes and a lot of Goosebumps fans' eyes. And I don't think anything's ever going to top it, unless for some reason, again, which I highly doubt, but if they were ever to go and make another live-action anthology adaptation of Goosebumps as a TV show, and they actually made Slappy like a direct clone of the Jacobus, I don't think we're ever going to get a better Slappy than that depiction. So yeah, that's pretty much my ranking. I just thank you guys so much for all the support you're getting, and welcome to all the new subscribers. I really appreciate you all joining on this channel, and just, I really hope to bring more videos to you and just have some fun interactions with the community. So I hope you all have an amazing day, and I will see you all in the next video.